If we want to do Jewish theology, you don't want to just say what you think. You want to get a table set up, and at that table, you put Rabbi Akiva and Maimonides and Rabbi Ishmael and the priestly authors of the Pentateuch and the Levitical Deuteronomic authors in the Pentateuch and the two different authors of the book of Isaiah. You put them all around the table and you just start a discussion. Jewish theology isn't supposed to come to a conclusion. It's the process of the discussion itself that is a sacred conversation. That discussion itself is a form of worship. A lot of people seem to presume that either my religion has all the truth and other religions have none, or my religion is useless and some other religion out there has all the truth, or none of the religions have truth. Sort of extreme either or. And for me, it was always more of a both and accepting the idea that in religion there is struggle. And religion doesn't mean that we're finding all the truths and we're now confident. In fact, I have to admit that my scripture and my tradition make some mistakes. My tradition is really infinitely valuable and also not perfect.
Thank you. So we're in the middle of this class on...
No one ever said that religion is only supposed to provide comfort and encouragement. Maybe in some levels intellectually, it's supposed to do quite the opposite. The Bible can be really, really familiar. First of all, in Western culture, the Bible plays a big role, and so even if you're not religious, there are certain characters, there are certain stories that you know about. And yet, especially from the point of view of modern biblical scholarship, the Bible can also be revealed as really unfamiliar. So what we do is we read a lot of literature in the original languages, and you read all this stuff, and it's just so foreign. It is just not a modern Western text. The way that they're telling a story, the way that they're perceiving the whole world, it's so different from our own. And so reading ancient Near Eastern literature and situating the Bible in its ancient Near Eastern context allows us to make the familiar unfamiliar. It allows us to show the foreignness of the Bible. And that can be a surprising and disconcerting moment, but it's also a moment that kind of breaks things open. That's something that I love doing as a scholar, but there is risk. What I'm doing opens up the Bible and Jewish culture more generally in ways that are difficult. So first of all, there's just the idea that, well, maybe it was actually written by human beings, that the actual wording doesn't come from heaven. Number two, there's the idea that, well, the 5 books of Moses weren't actually written by Moses. They were put together from 3 or 4 main blocks of material that may have existed independently, and that's how we get the Torah. But the Torah then, it's not really a book, it's an anthology. It's not really from Moses' time, it's from hundreds of years later than the time of Moses. And there are ethical errors in the biblical record. The Bible calls on us to do certain things that were bad things to do. The Bible calls on the Israelites to expel the Canaanites and or slaughter the Canaanites. So, the command to kill Amalekite babies, that's a hard thing to find in one's own scripture. References to a loving relationship between a male and a male as being an abomination, that's something that appears in 2 verses in the book of Leviticus. And what I've seen with my own experience of couples I know tells me that, no, that relationship, I know that that's not an abomination. I can see that with my own eyes. Also, my ancestors and predecessors in ancient Israel, they got polytheism wrong in some ways. And their portrayal of paganism is not entirely an accurate portrayal. They were not, by and large, the utterly immoral people that the Bible sometimes describes them as being. I think polytheism is good at understanding the infinite variety of the reality that is divinity in the world. So, in the Hebrew Bible, there is this debate between two different sides, one of which says that God is radically one, and therefore God has only one body or one presence or one manifestation. On the other hand, there's a point of view, it's kind of a minority position within the Bible, that says God has a multiplicity within God's unity. God can manifest God's self in more than one place, in multiple bodies, in multiple selves. When God appears to Moses at the burning bush, that would be an example of, okay, that God lives up in heaven, but in some ways God has become physically present inside of this bush. So this isn't the idea that God is simultaneously everywhere. That's a different idea. I think the fact that the Bible contains both kinds of voices and that ultimately neither kind is erased entirely, I think it also sets up a model for understanding that, look, any human perception of God is limited. Revelation wasn't simply a download, but rather from the very beginning, there's a voice going up and a voice going down. Things are going back and forth. If that's the case, then everything we get in the Bible itself is participatory in the sense that we humans participated in creating it, but God participated in creating it as well. What matters, I think, from a religious point of view, is not coming to a conclusion. It's simply engaging in this discussion, engaging in this dialogue. And we continue that dialogue today.
What I'm trying to do in this class is to introduce you not only to ideas having to do with God's body, but also to introduce you to the idea of the Bible as a record of debate, as an invitation to conversation, rather than the Bible as simply a statement of dogma telling us what to think. Thanks very much.
This comes back again to the either or versus both and thinking. So many people seem to think that if you're faithful, you've got to be all faithful all the time. I think a much, much more mature kind of faith is a faith in which you acknowledge that part of your faith involves doubt. An authentic, healthy Jewish culture has to have both sides.
The Congregational Council is voted on by the congregation, and it is a group of...
Scripture is sacred and authoritative and tremendously valuable, but it's not perfect. The Scripture is a human response to God's real event of self-revelation. The human translation of God's command is never going to be perfect. No translation is ever perfect. And even if it's a really, really great translation, that doesn't mean that it's going to be the best translation forever and ever. And maybe part of our role as Jews today is we're supposed to be continuing this act of interpretation and translation. And in our own small ways, maybe we're supposed to be improving the translation. I don't have to either go into denial or atheism, into fundamentalism, or into a sort of really extremist version of religion to be loyal to this tradition. I'm adding to the tradition, I'm continuing this process, which we should do with humility. And we should do hesitantly, but at times we should nonetheless go ahead and do it. אבי היה אלוהים ולא ידע. הוא נתן לי את 10 הדיברות, לא ברעם ולא בזעם, לא באש ולא בענן, אלא ברכות ובאהבה, והוסיף ליטופים והוסיף מילים טובות, והוסיף אנא, והוסיף בבקשה, וזימר זכור ושמור בניגון אחד, והתחנן ובכה בשקט בין דיבר לדיבר. לא תישא שם אלוהיך לשווא, לא תישא, לא לשווא. אנא, אל תענה ברעך עד שקר, וחיבק אותי חזק ולחש באוזני. לא תגנוב, לא תנאף, לא תרצח. ושם את כפות ידיו הפתוחות על ראשי בברכת יום כיפור. כבד, אהב, למען יאריכון ימיך על פני האדמה, וכל אבי לבן כמו שיער ראשו. אחר כך הפנה את פניו אליי בפעם האחרונה, כמו ביום שבו מת בזרועותיי ואמר, אני רוצה להוסיף 2 ל10 הדיברות. הדיבר 11 לא תשתנה, והדיבר 12 השתנה תשתנה. כך אמר אבי ופנה ממני והלך, ונעלם במרחקיו המוזרים.